In today's segment, we're going to be talking about World War II. This is a Prezi. You can find the link to this on my website. Follow along. You can do it just like I do. You can go also to YouTube and find the video that I'm doing for you today. But also, please don't forget to go to Edmodo and get your assignments done for this. So let's begin talking about World War II. Last we talked about Hitler's movements in Europe. Now, Hitler had gone in and taken the Rhineland. He had taken Austria. He had moved toward the Sudetenland and was given that in the appeasement policy of Britain and France. And then he moves into Czechoslovakia, and now he's working his way into Poland. Now, Hitler and Stalin had signed a non-aggression pact, and this was basically a secret truce between them that they would not fight one another. And one of the terms of that is that if one had invaded Poland, the other would help them do that. And this is what Hitler's going to do. He's going to invade Poland using a new technique, and this technique is going to be called the Blitzkrieg. And Blitzkrieg means lightning war. And that's a great term for it because it was extremely fast, and it was a new way of doing things by utilizing the mobility and advancement of transportation at that time. They are going to go in and bomb ahead with planes, the particular target, and here the target is Warsaw, Poland, to kind of devastate them. And then after that, they're going to move in tanks at a high rate of speed to come in there and take out things. Then the infantry will finally come in and clean up after that. And it was extremely fast. And from that, Hitler's going to gain momentum. He also has his ally now, Russia, who helps to invade from the east while he's invading from the west. And now Germany sets its eyes towards France. After World War I, the French, still afraid of Germany, will build a defensive line along the French and German border called the Maginot Line. And the Maginot Line was this massive fortification of walls and turrets with guns on them. They even had underground tunnels with railway carts that could move back and forth soldiers. They spent a lot of money to build this to deter a German invasion in the future. And one place they didn't build it was called the Ardennes Forest because they didn't feel like Germany was ever going to try to go through this huge, massive forest. They felt like it would be a waste of time for Germany to do that. What does Hitler do? He goes through the Ardennes Forest. And from there, he's able to sweep through France. And one of the great stories of World War II is called the Miracle at Dunkirk. Now, Hitler does not pursue the retreating British and French soldiers. And those soldiers make it to a little fishing village right across from Great Britain. And from there, they are going to go across the English Channel and basically anything that can float. And so thousands of lives were saved. One, because Hitler didn't pursue, and two, because of this massive effort to save these men's lives. They were everything from rowboats to fishing boats to yachts. Anything that could float was brought over to help these. And within a matter of a couple of days, they're all saved. They leave behind all their equipment, but the lives are saved. And why doesn't Hitler pursue? Because he's too concerned with going to get France. And he marches into Paris. He has gone out and found the same railway car that the armistice, the end of fighting for World War I, was signed in. And the beginning to the kind of bullying that Germany was under by these Allied nations. And he has France surrender to him in World War II in the exact same rail car that Germany surrendered to France in essentially during World War I. He will establish this fake or puppet government in the north where he's controlling it. In the south, this fake or puppet government is run by what's left of the French government, and they'll be led by Charles de Gaulle. And from there, they'll try to continue on with the ways of the French. But Hitler definitely has momentum. Hitler is now going to set up to invade Great Britain. He had gone up and gotten Norway and Sweden with the somewhat help of Russia. Russia took a long time to help defeat the Norwegians, and so Hitler had this idea that they were very weak and that at any time he could go into Russia and beat him, and that's going to be an idea that will linger and will actually be a huge mistake in the future, and we'll talk about in just a minute. Now, in Britain, the new Prime Minister is Winston Churchill. He was the one that spoke out against Neville Chamberlain. He's a great supporter and gives good spirit to the British people. And one of the sayings he has is, "We shall never surrender." Now, because Hitler has France, because he has Norway, he's able to have invasions and bombings of Great Britain. He's trying to set up for a land invasion, massive land invasion, to take over Great Britain. The first step to that was to wipe out the Royal Air Force. This is the British Air Force. And they competed with the German Air Force, which is called the Luftwaffe, for superiority of the air. So Hitler really wanted to wipe them out. And then he would invade by land. The only problem is that Hitler didn't know about two things that the British had that really saved them then and really changed the war, if you look at it. The British had radar. And radar had just been invented at that time. The Germans didn't know anything about it. Okay? But also the British had stolen a machine called the Enigma. And the Enigma was like a code maker. So think of a typewriter that when you type a word into it, it creates a code out of that word. And that was what the German codes were based off, was this machine. And they didn't know that the British had one. And so the British was able to understand the German codes. And so when the German Luftwaffe goes to wipe out the Royal Air Force, they're met because of radar and because of this code-breaking ability by the Royal Air Force. And so the German Air Force shows up, and it's like the British knew exactly where they were going to be at what time because they did. And so the British were able to turn them back. Now, because the British were succeeding at stopping this, Hitler kind of gets frustrated, starts bombing at night. And so the people of London and other cities will start to sleep in the subways, live underground, have bomb shelters. And eventually, Hitler will call off the bombings of Great Britain because he's so unsuccessful about it. And a lot of that goes back to radar and the use of that Enigma machine. And because of that, now he has to wage a war on the mainland of Europe. And with that, he knows that he's going to need oil reserves. Well, where does he go to get oil reserves? One's the Middle East, but two is in the Caucasus Mountains. And to get there, you got to go through Russia. Having seen how long and difficult it was for the Russians to take over Norway, Hitler believes that they have poor leadership and they're very weak, and he can go in there and take them over. He will go and he will have victories on the Balkan Peninsula, and now he's going to prepare to go invade Russia. They had a non-aggression pact, and he's going to break the aggression pact, and he's going to lose an ally. And Hitler, who had studied military history, learned nothing from Napoleon's defeat. Napoleon got defeated because he went into Russia, he broke the lines with the supplies, he fought in winter without the supplies he needed, and suffered from it. What does Hitler do? Pretty much the exact same thing. He will go into the town of Leningrad in the north. He will go and surround Leningrad, starve its population. But the Germans lose many people too. He finally gets Leningrad after losing a lot in a long time, and he moves to Moscow, where the Germans lose more people. And what were the Soviets doing? The Soviets were moving its people out. They were moving the factories out. They were moving the food out. They were defending their land by that method and leaving the Germans to fend for themselves, and they couldn't do it. So what does Germany get from Operation Barbarossa, where they go into the Soviet Union to try to break it over? They get nothing. They get nothing, and on top of that, they lose a very strong ally, and then they lose 500,000 soldiers. So now they are very weak from that. And this becomes the turning point for the European war, because now Hitler is on a downhill spiral from that. That concludes the notes for now. We will have different segments ahead. Please make sure you're keeping up with the notes on Prezi.com. You can find that on my website. Make sure you're following the videos on YouTube, and make sure that you're following the assignments on your Edmodo accounts.